this week and look ahead to what will make us facepalm next week. This is What Just Happened on the Dean Obeidallah Show. Take it away, Dean.
And welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show, Friday, December 7th. So much going on, and that's why the third hour of every Friday, it's What Just Happened. As we look back at the insanity of the week, tonight, two great people joining me. First, Carole Montgomery, comedian, writer, director, producer, over 24 national TV appearances from Comedy Central to Oprah. Carole, welcome to the show, my friend.
Now, glad to be here. It's been a while.
It has.
I mean, I haven't seen you.
Maybe on John's show.
I think we did on John's show. But it's nice to be on your show.
Well, thank you for being on. And next to you is someone who is a favorite of John's show, Carolina Hidalgo, who's also a favorite of our show. You know her from comedy and movie signs with the Mads, the podcast, wildly popular. And nice to see you again, Carolina.
Yeah, you too, Dean.
How's John's show doing? You guys do it a lot? I mean, you do it weekly, don't you?
Yeah, most of the time. I've never done it with Carole yet.
I know, which is so weird because I'll do the show and then he'll go, and tomorrow we have, and he'll say you.
And I've heard your name too.
Yeah, exactly.
Tonight, well, then screw John, because I've had you both on here tonight.
Yeah,
we don't need John.
Now we don't need him.
John with the perfect hair. Let's move on. All right, so there's a lot of topics to touch on. And
wow, yes.
Well, first we were talking all night, the first 2 hours about this sentencing memo and all that stuff. Forget the memo stuff from you guys. As you see this insanity unravel, we learn more and more about Trump and crimes and things like that. Is anything surprising, and where do you think we're going with all this? There's no wrong answer, so you can say anything.
But I said this months ago that I think they're going to get him on the RICO Act. I think this is a total mob. This is the mob. This is, like, I grew up in Brooklyn. Not that I wasn't part of the mob, but I had friends who were in the mob.
Right, you knew people.
Do you know? I knew people, so I still know people. But the point, like, you everything that I see on this, like whenever I talk to people, and I do have a few friends that are still believe in him, and I'm like, this is not about Russia. I mean, it has to do with Russia and the fact that it's the Russian mob, but this is about the mob. This is about laundering money. So I'm not surprised at anything that comes up now.
It could be laundering money, ultimately, all of this.
Absolutely.
Money plays a big role in this, and him not giving his tax returns. Not that if he's laundering money, we're going to see it. Right. We're going to see sources like Russian banks, money from that or profits from there. So, Carolina, what's in your heart? Where do you think this ends?
I do agree with Carole about the whole mob thing. I've always thought that. And I thought that everyone always knew that. It's about, right? Was I wrong? Because I was not the only one thinking this whole time along. Right. And it's mostly not about, like, proving, like, this administration or Trump himself being, like, the kind of guy who's like, oh, he's a bad man, he does bad things. Like, half of the people don't care about that. So it's just about nailing the guy, Capone style.
Right.
Whatever you got to do.
Capone style.
That's how they got Capone.
Right.
They absolutely got him that way.
Conspiring with the Russians. Exactly. Al Capone, oddly enough, no, you're right. I agree. It was tax evasion, not the big thing. And for Trump, it could be violating campaign finance laws, which, if you guys did not read the sentencing memos today like you should have, the prosecutor in the U.S. District of New York here, Southern District of New York, they put in writing for the first time that not only Michael Cohen pled guilty in August to Donald Trump being involved in campaign finance violations, but that it's clear with the way they wrote it, they have proof of that corroborates that beyond Michael Cohen.
Oh, yeah.
So now you have an allegation by a prosecutor that Donald Trump, the man who's in the White House, committed 2 felonies.
Right.
It's a game changer. And Trump tweets today. I'm not even kidding. You know what he just tweeted
after?
Yeah.
I know.
I didn't read it yet.
It's a long tweet.
A long one. I only heard the one that said, "I'm cleared."
That's what he wrote.
Is he a sociologist now?
He is.
Sociologist, Scientologist.
He wrote. He wrote, totally clears the president. Thank you. And I tweeted, I finally get it. This is a parody account. Because up to then, nothing makes sense. So this is the most insane thing we have going on. So, all right, let's talk about some other issues that were in the news for a minute, but because of this whole Trump Mueller mania, as we've been calling it, they were forgotten. Kevin Hart and the Oscars. Kevin Hart, the comedian, gets asked to host the Oscars. When it comes out, and I guess it had come out before, I guess I didn't see it, but people that were reporting this already was raised at some time. He had written stuff that people said were homophobic, that he said years ago, but he did write 7 years ago saying, yo, if my son comes home and tries to play with my daughter's dollhouse, I'm going to break it over his head and say in my voice, stop that, it's gay. And then he said in 2010 that one of my biggest fears of my son growing up was going to be gay. That's a fear. Because I'm not homophobic, but nothing against gay people, but I'm against my son being gay, if I will. Before we get into reaction stuff, what is your reaction just to they were from years ago, but what are your reactions to these comments?
Well, first of all, I do not agree with those comments at all, right?
I'm not saying you did.
No, exactly. But
How
I'm saying,
dare you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know Kevin Hart personally, but if I were to read that, I'd just be like, this is like, what comic is this? I'm not going to follow his stuff. And then that's it. And I move on, right?
Right.
If I would have read it back then. And now him, like, that's just my general reaction. And now him coming out and being like, listen, I'm 40 years old. I've learned a lot. I was an idiot, like kind of like how the Beastie Boys came out when they had very misogynistic lyrics, and then they came out and they apologized and they even changed their lyrics, and then they went on to do amazing things. So I think people can change in that sense and like grow up and mature. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, the thing that I posted today was, first of all, these tweets were this one tweet was 2007, so we're talking. Right?
Yeah.
So we're talking almost 12 years ago. People do change. He was an up-and-coming comic at that point. He wasn't Kevin Hart. And he apologized before about these tweets. And I don't agree with what he said on these tweets. Mm-hmm. I'm not condoning that. But excuse my language, he's a fucking comic. That's what we do. We pull the curtain away from the absurdities of life. And he's already said that I've changed as a human being. And if we go, this has happened so many times. There was a guy, was it in Canada? There was a comedian in Canada that got sued by an audience member because she was offended.
Wow.
And we start going down that. I literally had this happen to me about 2 weeks ago. It's a long story, but basically I said something to the woman, and you could see her, and she was like 90, and she was so furious at me. But she stayed for my set. It was a 10-minute set, and when I was off stage, I was talking to some other comics. She walks up to me and points at me. You
Carole.
You were insulting, and you offended me. And I said, well, I'm sorry that you didn't like it. You could have left as soon as I said it. Right. And it was nothing. It was basically, the joke is, when I get on stage, everyone says, wow, you look so great for 60. I said, I use semen. And then the woman later on, when she raised her, I said, how old are you? And she said she was 90. I said, wow, you look great. You must be using the semen. And she thought that was the most offensive thing. I'm like, wow, have you not heard anything the fucking president has said in the last 2 years?
Well, I mean, it's interesting how audience members can get upset. With this, the real backlash by the LGBT community was that his first response was not any kind of apology to this. It was like, stop looking for a reason to be negative. Then he said, I'm almost 40 now. I've changed. And then finally he tweeted, clearly a PR firm got involved in his tweet then. A few hours later, I'm sorry that I hurt people. I'm evolving and want to continue to do so. My goal is to bring together people, not tear us apart, march love. And, in a way that should have been his first reaction in a way. Look, it was a long time ago. I've changed. If anyone's offended, I'm sorry, I don't have these same views anymore, something along those lines. Or just get rid of the old tweets would be one thing for years ago. But saying something about acknowledging that you've caused pain to people by saying this, and now you're a celebrity and people think you have clout and power.
Right.
I think that's important because with great responsibility comes power. I think Spider-Man said that. And
I think he
did. Often quote Spidey. And so I think on that level, that it was a reaction, because there weren't people that I saw calling for him to be fired. They were like, hey, you said these horrible things. Can you respond? And GLAAD, the gay and lesbian organization, said, let's meet before he was let go. Let's meet and talk about how we can work together and stuff like that. That's the great thing, because I think we need to encourage people to evolve. I think it's so important, as opposed to just marginalizing and demonizing people. If someone showing you they sincerely want to evolve, we need to do that, because I'd rather welcome people into society,
right,
and have them change and show others, look, I changed. I used to hate, let's say I'm Muslim. I hated Muslims. I met Dean. Now I really hate Muslims. no, but I meant and you break through it that way. And the fine line is show them doing more than words, I think, to show their commitment to sincerity that they've evolved.
Well, I agree. I do agree on that. But then that, and I'm not belittling that the tweets were bad. They were bad. But how is it possible that we're going after Kevin Hart? Yet the president is still in office. Yet Louis C.K. can go on stage and at the Comedy Cellar, and a woman gets kicked out. Did you hear about this?
What was the recent one, or something with the
No,
the first time? When
no. This is like a week ago. There was a
what
girl that
happened?
yelled out saying, "Why don't you pull out your dick?" And they took her out of the room.
Wow.
And it's like, okay, so okay.
What was his response? Anything?
I don't know what his response was, but they got her out of the room.
I thought it's interesting about when Louis C.K. came back to the Cellar the first time. It was unannounced, and it went on stage, and some people got upset. And then the owner of the Cellar, Noam, was commented a few weeks ago, or less than a month ago, going, well, we have no plans that he'll be back on stage.
Right.
So for him to come back, it's kind of interesting. I didn't know they had banned him.
They hadn't banned him.
They hadn't banned him, but I didn't know when Noam had said that. I thought, oh, they're just telling him, like, hey, stay away from a while. And that kind of thing. We had discussed the Louis C.K. Were you here when we talked about Louis C.K.?
No, I think I
about
missed
the
it.
idea. Well, it's good. You're both women. You can tell me as opposed to me.
Right.
Because as a male comic, you know, I always end up backing comedians all the time. But with Louis, he was using his power to take advantage of these women.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the question is, what is the right punishment or penalty for that till you can be welcomed back into society? And it's about the evolving thing. Like, is it enough for him to say, I'm sorry, he took a year off from comedy.
Right.
And what else should he do? Because many women are still upset. It was very clear when he came back.
But the thing is, when he got here, he could have resolved it the first time he stood on stage at the Comedy Cellar and said, I'd like to take something out and show you. Make a joke about it. Address the fucking elephant in the room, but he didn't. He's doing his little Louis jokes, and nobody was discussing it. It was like, that's the first. Whether or not that would have changed anything, it would have at least been for women to be like, okay, he addressed it. He acted as if nothing happened.
And Ted Alexandro made a bigger deal. I don't know if you
I
saw
know
Ted
he did.
went on stage and joked about it afterwards. And I mean, Caroline, when you heard what Louis did, and then a year later he goes back on stage, what was your reaction when you first read that he was back?
Well, I wasn't surprised. And also the Louis C.K. thing, like that has been an open secret in the comedy community for many years. So everyone was kind of used to it. And then when he went back on stage after this whole thing happened, I was just like, all right, I guess it's up to the owner, of course, of the establishment. I'm not going to tell anyone what to do or who to watch or not watch. Right. But at the same time, it's like just if you kick him out and you get him out of the show because people don't want to see him, you know what? The good people move up one. And then there's a spot for someone else. It doesn't have to be a woman, anyone who's just not,
Someone named like Carolina Hidalgo.
Someone
Perhaps
like
a spot
that.
like that, like a comic like that might be
funny.
a good
Threw it out there. It's out in the universe now. Yes.
So, no, I think it's interesting because when he first came back, I was like, oh, wow, they let Louis back in. And I guess he's doing comedy. And I assumed people were like, well, it was a year later, but I was wrong.
Yeah.
People were like, no. And then I was taken aback. I'm like, so I don't know what the penalty should be. Like, if he was convicted of a crime and went to jail for, like, say, 6 months or 7 months and came out, went on probation and completed it, it'd be done. And then you'd say, well, I served my time. I paid my debt to society. And now I'm moving forward with my life. Would people have been more forgiving than now where there was no penalty, really? He just self-imposed exile.
Right.
I wonder.
I just think that when he's on stage, he should talk about what happened. I mean, that's what we talk about.
Yeah.
If there's something shitty that happens, that's what a real comic does. You go up there and you discuss to me, I would have more respect from him if he really did talk about how fucked up he is that he did that. You know? I mean, and people, I wrote an article about it because Laurie K. Martin wrote one for the Times and I wrote one for Medium. And basically, I was always very lucky because I think the bro rule was in effect for me because I've been with my husband since I started stand-up.
Wow.
So it was like, everybody was like, no, we're not going to bother her. You know, I don't know if they were afraid of me or if they thought that, somehow, but I've never had that situation happen with any comic.
There's something wrong with them.
Of course.
There's a reason why you need to go on
Totally
stage
fucked up.
for the adulation of strangers on a nightly basis. Something's happened in your life to bring you to that stage.
Absolutely.
For some, it's less, they're more well-adjusted. Others, like Louis, was having this facade of like, things are going pretty well in my life. Meanwhile, he's had this other dark secret.
Right.
That Frank, it's funny, I didn't know that secret. Like, you're like,
Oh,
it was
really?
maybe women knew about it.
Women knew about it.
Yes,
Because
women
I
knew
used to work
about
at the
it.
Cellar all the time. I would talk to Louis. There's no male comic ever go, you know what Louis does with women? I never ever heard
Right.
a whisper of it
Yeah.
until it came in an article somewhere. I'm like, wow, that's kind of interesting. I guess it's true for them to print this and then a whole bunch of women came forward. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Well, what's the rule when a cop does something bad? Is it the blue code?
Blue wall of silence.
Blue wall of silence. That was the comic wall of silence.
But no one. But then what other comics would have said? So I mean, guy, I don't know how many men knew it, but women clearly knew it. I think that's what was going on.
I do think so, because I do remember hosting a show where he was going to drop by or something, and someone said, like, you better watch out, Carolina.
Really?
And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then after time went on, this was like years. This is from like maybe like when I first started stand-up like 8 years ago or something like that. And it was just a known thing.
That long ago?
Yeah. And he would hang out he would just invite, like, I knew this girl, he'd invite a girl over, like, let's go watch a movie. And I guess they would go watch a movie, but I wouldn't ask how it went or anything like that.
Right.
You know, I didn't want to know. So
Right,
I just
right,
kind of kept
right,
it at that.
right.
I wonder with Bill Cosby, like at what point were comedians saying stuff like who knew him and going like he's doing this stuff, like
Yeah.
someone should say something.
Well,
And like,
because
yeah.
I've been doing stand-up. It'll be 40 years in 2019. So I remember that, the same thing. If you ever got a call to audition for Cosby, make sure someone else is in the room.
So you knew this rumor years ago? Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, men of power have a tendency to show their dicks,
Yes.
you know?
Where is this happening? Like that's when we learned all about like Matt Lauer and like Charlie Rose, like the idea of just wearing a robe around the office.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, how does a guy's brain go from I'm working in my office to thinking it's okay to get naked in your office without asking consent? Not just forget even asking consent. Like it's okay to get naked in your office is stunning to me. But the idea of like without consent, like how does you get? I'm not even kidding. Like, am I not wired correctly? Because I can't get there. Like it doesn't go like, oh, I should compliment her on her shirt. Now I should take my pants off or something. Like I don't know.
Meanwhile,
how you
he's
get-
not telling the audience that he's naked right now. Carolina, so
Well, we're
It's
streaming
known.
it. Good thing. Good. That's why we're streaming
We're all in
it.
separate rooms. No, but I mean, for guys, you guys must have seen. And Carolina, I mean,
I've never seen anyone's dick on stage. No.
No, but I mean, in recent times, have you gotten shit from people? Because
You know what? What Carole said is very true, because for many years I would get a few like not so blatant, but kind of like, I'm booking for this very, very popular thing. What are you doing tomorrow night? I'm like, oh, is it tomorrow night? He's like, no. What are you doing tomorrow night? And then I'm like, I'm busy, and then he's like, oh, sorry, it fell through, that thing. So it's just very blatant, very obvious, that kind of thing. And then in the last 3 years, now that like, I started dating someone and I'm in a long-term relationship and everything. Now, like, no one really bugs me anymore.
wow,
it's the bro rule.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. It's like, oh, she's taken.
I didn't know that. I'd never
Which
heard
is so
that rule.
fucking
I didn't
stupid.
hear about any of this stuff. I'm out of the loop. I haven't heard about.
I totally understand.
Louis?
Dean can't he can't get
Yeah,
that in his mind
no,
because you're
'cause-
like a total gentleman. That's
Yeah,
the
you're
thing.
a good guy.
Maybe I'm really horrible, but I've evolved. I was really bad. No, I'm like no. I've always been like serial monogamist all my life since I was young. I'd have like
But-
one
but-
girlfriend for periods of time, and that was it.
There are two types of men. There are the good guys and the bad guys. I mean, it's very
It's got to be a
simplistic.
gray area, though.
No, but
Good
like
guys go bad. There's got to be a place where I think it's.
And then the
too
Kevin Hart
sim-
guys. I don't know. The guys who grow up, maybe.
Well, all right, let's take a break. When we come back, the future is female is the question.
Yeah.
And no, Hillary said that a while ago, but suddenly in the last week or two, there's been a bunch of articles about, and those on the right and on the left, saying different views of this future is female. So it's great to have two women here. Clearly the future of this next segment is female. So when we come back, more with Dean Obeidallah's show right here with our friend Carolina Hidalgo and Carole Montgomery. Be right back, my friends.
Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress 127.
Your entire week's exhausting news broken down in one hilarious hour. What Just Happened is now live with Dean Obeidallah.
And welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show. What Just Happened? We're Friday, December 7th. We are live. We've been covering the hard news all week, but now we're trying to find some a little bit softer, a little bit lighter, but I'm hoping provocative. And this next thing I found provocative for not just the title, but the second thing that happened. So let's tell you on the first part. And the future is female. That is something Hillary Clinton declared last January. And in the last couple of weeks, for some reason, I don't know why, people on the left and the right began writing about this more. You had Michelle Malkin on Fox News attacking this whole thing, saying it's sexist the other way around. And then you had liberals, and there was an article in a publication saying the future is female, but it's also gay, young, black, and Muslim, saying America's changing, so how can it just be about female? And in reality, we had a record number of women win for Congress. Yes, so you've got objectively something changing in this country. But when you hear the idea the future is female, what does that mean to each of you?
I'll let you take that first.
Well, first of all, I love an alliteration. So that's already a point right there.
Right. I didn't come up with it. Hillary did.
I was reading those articles that you were talking about, and I don't understand why we always have to nitpick at every. It's a slogan, and it's a cool message, and I support it. And then why we always have to nitpick, like, well, what about the Muslims? Like, okay, the future is Muslim, and what about the lesbians? The future is I don't know, because it starts with an F, and I believe in it. All right.
But let me ask you, is it like the idea of Black Lives Matters, where it wasn't Black Lives dominate, it was simply we want to be treated like human beings.
Right.
We just want equality. Was that the essence? Or when you heard the future female, was it one of domination? Like, what were you thinking? Or making up for past times? Like,
making up for past times. As somebody who was around for the first women's movement, the fact that we're still dealing with the inequities of our pay,
right?
About us, the fact that how many women were voted into the House?
I think 25 Democratic women are heading to Congress.
So the fact that in 2018, that's a big story. That's ridiculous. Here's the deal. So I'm going to just talk purely comedy here, as comedians. When I started out, there were 7 women.
What do you mean? There were, in the national stage
we're
of
talking.
comedies?
I started stand up in '79. So it was Elaine Boozler was the queen. Then there was Adrienne Tolsch, Abby Stein. I used to sit online waiting for a number to get on and catch a rising star with Rita Rudner and Margaret Smith. I mean, so we were this little thing of just, we were the real oddity back then. And I'm sure you know this because of social media, but I created a show called Women of a Certain Age Comedy, which is all female headliners over the age of 50. And I talk about that. I said the reason I did that was because I wanted to work with my friends, number one, and I never get to work with other women. Ever. Yes. Because we can't talk about the same. It's okay for young male comics to talk about jerking off and getting high in their mother's basements, but for God forbid we should talk about, I was on a date with a guy, or I'm married. They all talk about the same thing. It's 2018, soon to be 2019, and we're still having this conversation. Fuck it. Yes, the future is female. So
I get it. So it's almost a protesty kind of aspirational payback for all the time where women. I mean, right now, the Fortune 500 companies, spoiler, there's 500 companies in it. There's about, literally, last time I checked, I think 21 women as CEOs.
Right.
Out of 500 companies.
500.
Out of 500, like 21. There's something institutionally wrong.
Really low.
Well, there's something institutionally wrong. There's obviously discrimination on a explicit basis when that's happening. And board of directors in the country, around 25% are women, meaning almost 75%. And of the Fortune 500, it's the women, almost exclusively white women, like almost none of color, and of men of color, so little. So there's a lot of inequities. But women, you are more than men in this country, so you should at least be even on things,
right?
Not that far behind.
And the pay thing really just amazes me, because every time I do a gig, I'm wondering myself, are they giving me the
yes?
I always wonder if they're giving me less.
You really do still?
Yeah. Oh,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I totally agree with you. On
Well, how much am I paying you for this?
a couple pretzel crisps right here.
And I was
and
giving
a
you
Coca-Cola.
things
Wow,
that
that's all he gave you?
we paid. All right, so it's interesting. I had no idea when the future. I like the term "the future is female." I'm like, that's cool. I like it. I didn't understand it fully. Was it about? It's time for us to have our moment in the sun after all these years of being discriminated against, passed over, oppressed, suppressed. So I'm cool with it.
Yeah, but what's interesting is that the woman from Fox that was ranting about it, it's like
Michelle Malkin.
Yeah. Hello. You're on Fox News because you're a woman. Because they needed to fill their fucking quota. Do you know what I mean? Like the fact that she did that.
Yes, there's nothing but quotas. It's so insane. Like, well, like I said, like I can't ever see my female, stand-up comedians around because they book one woman and one black guy and 4 white guys.
Right.
And so we never see each other.
Right.
That's interesting. That the shows are like 10 comics and it's one woman. We got a woman on tonight. That's fine.
Oh, that's happened many times. Or I've been bumped off of shows like, oh, well, the feature, she's a woman, so we already got too many. So, you're going to come do another. It's
and
crazy.
If it's men, they never say that. You could have 3 men in the lineup.
And I have to say,
Animal Farm, it's crazy.
Yeah. And not that, of course, I'm boasting about my show, but I have to tell you, the response for an all-female show, especially.
How often do you do the show?
We have a residency at the Crane every month, and now we're doing a show at the Bell House in January with Fran Drescher.
Cool.
Yeah,
nice.
I mean, I like, and people are talking about it because it's all. I mean, the people I've had on the show, you probably had on this show. Leanne Lord's been on the show. Veronica Mosey, Sherry Davy. Lynn Coplitz is going to do the show in January. We have a list of, and everyone's different. That's the thing that pisses me off. Is like we're all different. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's something made perfect for Netflix or for, I hope that you're having someone talk to these people.
Well, Netflix, we're not 12 and we're not men. So
but somebody, I mean, it's such a unique show. It'll skew to an audience. I bet you younger people are going to like it as well.
Absolutely.
People who like comedy are going to enjoy it. So.
Absolutely. Most of our, I mean, we the first show that we sold out was with a couple of months ago up in Hartford, and it was mostly an old crowd, but there were like pockets of millennials. I was like, okay, we've got this. But thank you for letting me boast about the show. But the point is, it wouldn't be successful if there wasn't an audience for it.
Absolutely.
And older women are like, there's women on stage that look like us. Like how many? I can't imagine women, who've been married, like, in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, going to a comedy show, like going to the Cellar and seeing Louis C.K. doing his, and be like, I don't want to hear about this shit. Do you know what I mean? They want to hear real comedy.
But what's also interesting is that look at the men who are talk show hosts. They're all in their 50s.
Right.
There's not even an issue about Conan O'Brien, Colbert.
Right.
Jimmy Kimmel is probably close to 50. Like, there's not the same, and it's very clear. There's discrimination in our business, discrimination on age, regardless. But against women, I think it is more
ridiculous.
severe and more acute.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the reality of this world that we live in. And how do you change that? Or can you? I mean, your show, if you got it on TV, it was successful. That's how the business changes. They see success in something they can't think will work because the guy you're pitching it to is 24. It's like, why would I want to see women like my mom on stage, you moron? And then it goes on Netflix, it becomes a big hit, and they're like, I saw it, I knew it. My mom's funny. These women are funny.
Yeah, no, but it all has to come down to money.
Yeah, it does.
If you make, I mean, when the first show that we sold out, the club owner was like, we had done a really shitty deal on my end. He's like, well, if you sell out, I'll give you a bonus. And he true to his word, which is also very weird for a booker to a club owner to actually go, here's extra money for what you did. But he did, because he realized it. He
wants you to come back because he's like,
absolutely.
There's money to be made here. And that's the same thing with our Arab American comedy shows.
Yes.
When I first started producing 13 or 4, we just had our 13th anniversary of the Arab American Comedy Festival. Well, when we started these one-off shows, we'd go to clubs and say we do Arab American comedy. Like, what? And it was like 2 years after 9/11. Like, are you kidding? Is this a joke?
Right.
Like, no, we're doing these things. And so we do the first one. It like sells out, and all of a sudden, like, oh my God. And then after a couple of years of other clubs hearing, the club owners were like, Dean, why don't you do your show at my club?
Yeah.
And so it changed from like this hesitancy to, I'm not sure our Americans, we might get a backlash because it was 2 years after 9/11 when we started this, and we were making fun of America, of course. And no, we weren't making fun of America. we were pro-terrorist at the time. It was a kind of a weird choice. Just it's very unique. I used to do a joke like, I'm one terrorist attack away from a development deal.
That's a great line. Don't call in. That's a funny fucking line.
The comedians would get it, but at the time, a little, I remember doing a joke one time at the Cellar. One time. And comics laughed so hard and the audience looked at me so weird. I'm like, United Airlines should do a commercial for like, hey, the terrorists could have picked any airlines, but they picked United. You know why? More leg room. Our aisles are wide. And the comics are dying and the people are just looking at me like, what is wrong with you?
What's wrong
One
with
time, now I might be able to do that joke today. But I did like 2 or 3 years after 9/11.
Yeah,
and
you should try it again.
It might be.
It's a funny joke.
Yeah,
it's a great
no, it's
joke.
good.
Well, there are jokes that are objectively funny, but subjectively offensive to people. And that's the world we live in. It's a harder world to navigate because I'm also aware of my friends who are comics, and for years they used the word like retard in their act. And now you hear it and it jumps out at you. I'm like, that's a little weird now. Like people might be, or like coming up, there was comics from Jersey who would say, hey, fag, or something like that. Right. And now you're like, what are you doing? Why? Because there's a sting to it, and I understand it.
Right.
And,
but there's talking about retarded. When I was going to school, back in the 20s, there was, it's called special ed now, but there was a class, and the class was the retarded kids. I mean, that's just well,
they may have been. That's actually a term that means like 2 standard deviations below the IQ. That's really what retarded means. Right. So it may have been that was just clinically the right term. Right. Then it became like a joke for everyone in Jersey, where I'm from. Like, Right.
Well. Sorry, you're from Jersey. I mean, Jersey, come on. Jersey's retarded. So,
oh, my God.
Don't call
Please
in.
Call
it's
in.
funny.
Please call in.
Funny.
Oh!
Thank you.
Was that? Oh, that was Matt? Matt Tomasetti. All right. So, Eagles fan, speaking of retarded. Sorry. Okay, we got it. We have to play our game, but I do want to get. When we come back, we'll play the game. Then when we come back, we're going to continue the fear of the futurist female to a different place that kind of, some people might get upset with me. I'm not upset. I was taken back by a CNN op-ed that was bemoaning Beto O'Rourke, O'Rourke getting fanfare and Beto mania, and she was arguing that it's sexist because women candidates never get that. I'm like, well, I don't know what to say. I mean, and it was a very popular article, and women I know shared it. I'm like, why would you blame Beto? Where is the sexism? But then I'm like, maybe I'm missing it. And that's why you guys are here. So let's play our game.
Let's play the game.
Ready for the game?
Now, it's time for America's newest game show sensation.
Guess who's Shannon?
And here's our little game. It's a game every week we do it. We have our joined by Carole Hidalgo and Carole Montgomery. I read them a quote and give them 4 options. There are no prizes. I just feel better about myself when they get them wrong. So here we go.
That is a reward.
That is a little reward. Here we go. Think of what the government does every day, what prosecutors do every day. They literally bribe witnesses by their freedom, sometimes their life and their money. A, was it Tucker Carlson? B, Alan Dershowitz? C, Donald Trump Jr.? D, Rudy Giuliani? Think of what the government does every day.
I would say C.
Matt? He knows the answers. Wrong. Both wrong.
We're both wrong.
Alan Dershowitz.
Wow.
Really?
The future, I guess, is not female, Carolina.
Well, depending on the quotes. Here we go, another one. Trump's a man who's undisciplined, doesn't like to read, doesn't read briefing reports, doesn't like to get into the details of a lot of things, but rather says, this is what I believe. Was it A, Barack Obama, B, Rex Tillerson, C, Anthony Scaramucci, D, Rachel Maddow?
B.
Rex Tillerson? You guys both perfect.
Yay! That's only because I just read something about him.
I read it this morning.
No, that was the thing. I was going to play that. We're just running out of time. All right. It reminds me of another George Soros, because Google is born in a free country and then they go over and oppress others in other countries. George Soros is supposed to be Jewish, but you wouldn't know it from the damage he inflicted on Israel and the fact that he turned on fellow Jews. A, Laura Ingraham. B, Stephen King. Not the author, the congressman.
Okay.
C, Congressman Louis Gohmert. D, Alex Jones. So who compared George Soros to George Orwell and said he turned on his Jews?
Could you repeat the names, please?
Sure. Laura Ingraham, Congressman Stephen King, Congressman Louis Gohmert, or D, Alex Jones?
I don't know. I think maybe Alex Jones.
I just read about this, and I'm going to say this, Gomar.
Gomar, you're right. And you're right.
And I'm wrong.
Wrong.
All right, who said this? Matt doesn't know this one because I added it myself. Rex Tillerson didn't have the mental capacity needed. He was as dumb as a rock, and I couldn't get rid of him fast enough. He was lazy as hell. A, Rudy Giuliani. B, a third grader. C, Donald Trump. D, Fox News random white guy.
I'm going to hand that one to Trump.
Trump.
That was easy. That was
an easy
Trump
one.
lashing out today. Dumb as a rock. He's dumb as a rock. Oh,
Yeah.
my God. All right, last one. I think that both about scientific consensus on climate change. This is a challenging one. I wish there were bonus points, but there's not. I think that both sides have their own results from their studies, and I appreciate and I respect both sides of the science. Ivanka Trump, Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke, Donald Trump, Kelly Craft, U.S. Ambassador to Canada.
Kelly Craft.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that. Good thing I rode that wave, that Carole Montgomery wave.
I win. I get the entire studio now.
You get all the
Good.
blood pressure inducing
Thank you.
food you can eat.
They're trying to kill me
We're going to
here.
come back and talk about, is Beatlemania sexist, like someone argued in CNN this week. We'll be right back with that and more on the Dean Obeidallah Show.
People.
Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress 127.
You're listening to What Just Happened with everyone's favorite host, Dean Obeidallah.
You're conservative.
Very
I can
different.
feel it.
I can deal with that.
Welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show, Friday, December 7th. What Just Happened, our weekly segment every third hour on Friday, joined by Carolina Hidalgo and Carole Montgomery, two really great comedians. So we were talking about Hillary Clinton's famous line, "The future is female," and some of the debate that happened the last couple of weeks. There was an article that just came up in CNN Opinion last week, and I write for CNN Opinion weekly, by Jill Filipovic. Filipovic. We'll just go with that. Filipovic? You sure? Matt's actually speaking in my ear, so folks, I'm not just...
Okay.
We were wondering.
Everyone's just staring.
What?
Oh, sorry, you guys can't hear the voices in my head either. So apparently... So she wrote an article about, yes, a record number of women won elections this year, and that's really great, and we all agree on that. And then she got about Beto O'Rourke and how there's Beto mania going on. And she says things, it's really weird. She goes, he's approachably good looking, which I'm like, that's kind of weird. Why? You're trying to be this really, really like progressive, and you talk about his looks to me is kind of weird. But in any event, and I hope I'm approachably good looking too. And then she goes on to say that, no, it goes here about the mania and how, there's mania and charisma, and you don't hear this about women. And that for men, we are so willing to use the term charismatic for them, and they're eloquent and sincere. But with women, we don't use those terms. And there are women deserving of being seen as superstars, and they're not getting that kind of press. And she mentioned Kamala Harris and Kirsten Gillibrand, Elizabeth Warren. And I don't understand the article because in essence, the article is saying Beto mania is going on, and we don't have, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez mania, which we actually do, because there's sexism. And I'm trying to understand it because I'm not saying it's wrong. You're women, so if you can explain it to me, what's going on, or if you disagree with it, tell me you disagree. Either one. I
didn't understand the point she was trying to make that would actually help anybody in the long run. And I don't mean to shit on her or anything like that, but it's like, oh, why isn't it beta mania? Like, why isn't beta a woman or transition? I mean, I know that's ridiculous, but at the same time, like, I just don't understand. Are you just picking a fight? Or
yeah, that's what it sounds like.
She seemed to know, but she wrote a book
right?
about feminism. I mean, let me read a little at the end. She says it's not a slam on Beto, but we have to examine the assumptions and biases that give us Beto mania while conveniently ignoring or actively kneecapping the great many competent, talented, progressive women who could be just as exciting. If we only let go of our deepest biases, embrace the possibility of female power, and let ourselves get excited. And it did make me think, like, am I more hesitant to say a woman is charismatic, or collectively is our society more hesitant to say a woman is really charismatic and exciting while you'll say it from a man? And I'm like, well, what women do I think are really charismatic leaders? I'm like, well, Oprah, she's everyone's person. And I was trying to think about politicians, and I think Kamala Harris is the closest.
Oh, I love her. I
think
just
she's-
adore her.
What do you think? So give me your take, Carole, on what I just read here about this deep-sighted bias within us, so we won't see women in the same charismatic mania world that we'll see at Beto.
I agree. You and I are agreeing on a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
I
we are.
agree with Carolina. I mean, it does sound like she's just trying to pick a fight. It's like, really, this is what we're this is what we're writing about. There's so much other shit that we need to resolve once again with who is the president of the United States. And let's fight. It to me, what it feels like is the old you can't ever show women being friends because they have to be competition. So to me, this is like she's just
the media.
So she's so now instead of saying, Kamala Harris versus Elizabeth Warren, she's just like, oh, well, women aren't getting the same thing that men. Shut the fuck up, Jesus.
Yeah. I don't understand why she's like, everyone's talking about Beto. Why don't I write an article about Beto?
But you know what?
I don't understand.
But when Barack Obama, I remember when he did that speech at the Democratic Convention when he was a senator.
2004, the first one?
Yes, and I looked at him and he did that speech, and I looked at my husband. I said, "This man is going to be the next president of the United States."
No.
And Todd was like,
Thank you, Carole.
No, and Todd said, and my husband said, he goes, no, he's not. He doesn't have any experiences. I'm telling you, he's going to be president someday. Okay, so he had that same charisma that Beto has. Okay, so, and I understand it. He is a good-looking guy. But the reason I like him, and this is so stupid, because the reason I liked Obama was because he was a good dad. And the thing about Beto is that he reminds me of Jimmy Stewart.
He reminds me of Bobby
Oh,
Kennedy
you're
a little bit for
right.
some reason.
Jimmy Stewart is good. Kennedy, I can kind of get. I see. I'm on the Jimmy Stewart bandwagon.
Right, but you know what I mean. Like you just expect him to be like, well, like he
means well. He's a good guy,
well.
salt of the earth type of person.
Right, and I don't know whether or not had we not had the administration we have now. I don't know whether or not he'd have been that successful. But you're looking at a guy
is everything.
He's got compassion, and he's empathetic, and he's funny. He plays guitar. I mean, there's like so
he
many
skateboards. He was in a punk band. A dream come true.
I mean, but that's where that we've lowered the bar so low now, because we're like, oh my God, he was in a punk band. He should be a senator.
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back for the last few minutes of the Dean Obeidallah Show right after this.
Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress 127.
You're listening to What Just Happened with everyone's favorite host, Dean Obeidallah.
And welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show. Last few minutes here of the week, we got our friends Carole Montgomery and Carolina Hidalgo. So there were a lot of other topics I want to talk about. Let me just ask you one thing, because we had a big debate this week on, like, George Herbert Walker Bush died, and there was
87 funerals.
A lot of funerals.
Jesus,
and
quite a few.
And there also a sense, like, when you talk about someone like that who dies, you know, we on the show objectively criticize the bad things, but at the same time, I feel like we're grading on a curve because of Trump.
Absolutely.
Same thing with John McCain. Like, I think I like John McCain on many things, his integrity, but there were certain things I didn't like. But when it was like compared to Trump, and well, I mean, should that still be the standard through Trump? Because we should make that comparison. That actually helps show people what normalcy is and what this monster is in the White House. Or in the time of Trump, do you call out Bush or McCain or other people who die in the future and harp more on that than the good things.
You know, somebody was saying, I forgot, somebody on Twitter was like, would there be anything that Trump could do? Like, what happens when he dies at his funeral? I said, there's nothing to say. There's not a good fucking thing to say. Yeah. Maybe he was a good grandfather, but I can't even say that. But you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing. You know, and Bush Sr. did do some cool, you know, he did do some decent things. And here's the thing that I will say this 100 times about politicians. He had a sense of humor.
Oh, he did. He made fun of himself. He had Dana Carvey at the White House to make fun of him.
You know, because have a sense. If you have a sense of humor, people will be like, oh, okay, so he can laugh at himself. That's the biggest thing that drives me crazy about this asshole, that he does not have a sense of humor.
He's called for SNL to be canceled, literally in a tweet I wrote about it, and attacked Alec Baldwin. George H.W. Bush, and this doesn't define the entire person, but it says something. He invited Dana Carvey to make fun of him at the White House in front of everyone.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty amazing.
I agree with that, though. I agree with what Carole said.
All right, my friends. We have less than a minute left. So where can people follow you on Twitter and find out more about you, maybe about your show and stuff?
On Twitter, I'm at National Mom, and then on Instagram, it's at Carole Montgomery Comic. And like I said, the big show is January 15th at the Bell House. With Fran Drescher and Lunel and Lynn Koplitz and a ton of other people.
And Carolina?
Carolina does okay, spelled okay. Movie Sign with the Mads with Frank Conniff, Trace Bellew, and Escuela Sangre with Juan Camilo Saez. Those are 2 podcasts that you guys should listen
you do too.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you both of you for being here.
Have
a great weekend. We'll come back. Who knows what breaks between now and Monday. But have a great weekend. Enjoy yourselves. Recharge. We'll be back Monday, all new show. I'm on Twitter all the time, at Dean Obidala or Dean at deanofradio.com. Thanks a lot for tuning in.